and just tell me a quick blurb about, give me your name and some information about who you are, and follow that up with a fun fact. And I will start on this end. Is it on? It may be at the bottom. Yeah.
Right, good evening, everyone. I'm Marcus Turner Jr. Right now, I'm currently Dallas County Samson Coordinator for Dallas County. Basically, what it entails is getting people out of jail and putting them in treatment. So the majority of the task of my job is locate individuals in the criminal justice system in Dallas County. The court, I collaborate with the courts, so we get people out of jail and in treatment. We are funded through the federal government, through SAMHSA, through the Department of Human Health and Services. And that's what I do so far. A fun fact is, in 2022, I ran for Dallas County Clerk. It's a close race, I lost. I was 33 at the time, I'm 35, so I learned a lot of lessons along the way.
Good evening. My name is Tyra Fort, and I am a licensed mental health psychotherapist. And I see children starting at age 13 all the way up to adults. I am heavy into trauma, grief. I have a lot of clients who deal with anxiety and depression. And although I primarily see African American, I do see the good thing about it is we are seeking help to address our mental health. It's no longer a stigma in my community, so that's a great thing to see. A fun fact about me, I don't like sweet potato pie or sweet potato anything.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Keeley. I work for Real Time International. The reason why I'm here, my second is Concessions in Session. I'm waiting for the legislation of Black Lives. This legislation is passed each year. They're over almost 1,000 celebrate everybody actually read all that stuff and actually have the legislative society to expand content. But back about myself is I hate shoes. I hate shoes. Anytime I'm anywhere outside here, I hate having shoes on. So I get back in my car, I'll try to put my socks on.
I was laughing because my brother, my pastor, is the same way. He'll go to the restaurant, take his shoes off, and it's like when it's time to go to our room, with shoes at the house, no, at the restaurant, no, it doesn't matter. And that's what this is. Okay, so the next thing I want to go, and I have to do this right, is I want you guys to kind of explain this, your pathway to get where you are. And then, so you can kind of get some people, again, just try to get to know me a little bit better, and then we'll kind of go from there. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, the pathway from where, wow, 35 years, it feels like a long journey. But I started off at the district clerk's office. No, I'm sorry, Dallas County elections, basically being a driver. I was driving the elected official or the appointed official and the second in command everywhere they wanted to go. Really didn't know much about county government, didn't have a bachelor's degree, didn't have much education. Knew I was knowledgeable and I knew I was an advocate. It's just keeping it real. Sometimes when you're an advocate and you don't have the necessary paperwork or the accomplishments that people see, people will consider you an adversary. And so I just had to go through that phase of, checking off that checklist, working, putting in the years, going back to school, getting your bachelor's, and really matriculating through the county to where I am now. And so the Dallas County Elections Department to the Dallas County District Clerks to working in all the family courts and the civil file desk, Dallas County Public Service Program, and now in the Dallas County Criminal Justice, where I'm doing what I feel like is passionate work as well as helping the community from the inside.
college graduate, so I had no one to give me these tax or financial aid classes and things of this nature. And coming from, the Oak Cliff girl, and people always say, "Oh my God, you live in Oak Cliff." I'm like, listen, I just live in Rockwall. I'm from Oak Cliff. Don't get it twisted. I'm still that chick, right? But we don't have to be our environment,
Yeah.
right? We can figure out what your why is, and children and family, they're my why, and that's the reason why I do what I do.
I guess I've been passionate about politics pretty much my whole life. Growing up as a kid, I worked for Bill Graham, my brother, as a kid, passing out his flyers and stuff like that. When I got to college, I actually served as student body vice president, and her husband was actually student body president. I actually had to run, but I never did because I didn't want to get politics. Internship, Keystone Police Office, Democrat, within law enforcement. They know me as I became a cop straight out of college. I mean, literally, I came back on the door as a cop. Once after I left. So got into law enforcement and got a job with the Texas Municipal Police Association, where I married two jobs together, where I became the law enforcement liaison for the Texas Municipal Police Association down in Austin. Of course, that was a political job, and God, I was working for a losing, so I needed a job, so I ended up in Dallas. My job, I was not fortunate to have in politics, my kid lived at home. And of course, when people find out your background, you end up going working for several campaigns out here. And over time, got back to Dallas politics, and kind of been in the since I've been here for the last 10, 12 years. So, I'm sorry, guys. But I've been in politics here for probably the last 10, 12 years here in Dallas. And, like I say, I'm a policymaker. That's what I am. I'm a policymaker. So, I love reading. I spend every Wednesday in Austin during the session. That's where I am on Wednesdays. I'm actually in Austin every Wednesday during the session. And I just follow everything that's going on. I actually have a blog on Texas Black Politics and on Facebook or Instagram, so you know exactly what's going on in Austin every day in Austin. The sessions is going on, and all the time it's going on there for the elections. And during this time of the year, I'm actually consulting on several campaigns, so that's kind of what I'm doing right now. Kind of doing a lot of writing for these guys right now. So that's kind of why I do it. The reason why I got into it is I believe that we need to have a fair shot at everything that happens. Part of the problem with us African Americans is we didn't know the questions to ask because we didn't know the questions. And now we know the questions, we can actually go out the answers. And there have to be people who actually know the questions to ask. And I think that's what we'll actually have moving into the future, is just helping us to know which questions to ask.
I appreciate you so much for taking your time out to come with us again. So that kind of segues me actually to my first question for you, gentlemen. Can you really kind of discuss the importance of being a registered voter and an active voter?
Okay, I'll jump this one off. I started off with a story. So I was at an event yesterday at Dallas College Eastfield, and 3 young black men were walking around. We were next to the League of Women Voters, and the black men came up to me. I engaged them, and I was talking. They were young. One was 18, the other was 22 and 23. They were brothers. The 18-year-old wasn't a brother. So I asked them, "Have y'all voted before?" Their answer was no. I asked, why haven't y'all voted? And so they looked disinterested, and one of the young guys said, "Man, if I vote, they're going to put me on a list to be drafted." I say that to say we are in an information era, and misinformation is prevalent. And so it's our duty to educate our young people early. So if you are going to vote, take your sons, your daughters, your nephews with you, and let's build this culture of voting. When you look across Texas, now he may refute me, but I look today, I know I'm gonna err the caution. If he tells me that it's something different, then we're gonna go with him. Every black and whites are voting at 50%. I think Hispanics are a little under. What that tells me is if Abbott or these other candidates, I'm sorry, I know we're at a church, I can't say names. Okay. If these other candidates that you want to get out of office, we have the power as African Americans to go and get them out of office. In some areas, we probably include this area right now, we have the power to dictate elections. And so when I ran, what I discovered is nobody knew me. I'm pretty sure nobody in this church knows me. So they wouldn't think that I could beat a 20-year incumbent in the southern sector of Dallas County. And so that's the power of the vote right there. Who do you want to put in office? What policies are they talking about? How can they help you? I can just name countless amount of times I go to the barbershop and I say, who y'all voting for? They said, man, this election don't matter to us. What has the president done for us? And this is, like I'm saying, we got to have deeper and more in-depth conversations. We literally have the power in our hands to sway any election. And when we recognize that power, I think we'll move, I guess you can say, in a better vantage point. So I'm going to encourage everybody to register to vote, know your candidates, and tell a few friends. That's how you win elections.
All right, I try to break it down and tell people, you election your elected officials, you affect every part of your life. I know we're in income tax season right now. How many love that earned income credit as far as child and getting all that money back on all the earned income?
It's going to be my first time.
Well, somebody has to vote for that. And somebody can vote against that too. That's not guaranteed. You enjoy, you get your Section 8. Those are things that come up every session. They can vote for it, say, yes, you can have Section 8. No, you can't have Section 8. Everything that you do, even to go and getting gas and who regulates what's a gallon. Everything that you do is regulated by your elected officials. And on another part, on voting, what people don't realize is once you vote, those people appoint people to committees. And the committees is where the money is split up. The legislators give you a big bunch of money, but the committees are the people who actually split that money up and send money to your department, your organization. That's how the money is actually split up. And who you vote for, these people are picking it up. Most people don't realize that your governor picks 1,200 people every session, and they time out, every year or whatever. But he appoints 1,200 people. Well, they passed what, $17 billion in money? Well, how much of that we get? How many African Americans are on those committees to even know where the contracts are actually at? Where they even post that type of stuff? So when you actually don't vote, you're taking our entire community out of the equation to boost us economically. And we always talk about black economic empowerment. Well, who's the biggest pile of money out there? The U.S. government, the Texas. And we don't do that. So that's my why. That's why people should actually vote. That's where all the power, that's where all the money, that's where all the influence, that's where everything happens, is in that one little vote that you put in.
Thank you so much for that explanation. I actually have learned something. Go ahead, Marcus.
So there we go. I wanted to say one thing. The power of when you just said that one vote, I know an election right now. It was in precinct, I think it's 3. Precinct 3. On election day, we went to, my wife witnessed. On election day, one of my good buddies in precinct, well, actually 2, were running for the same race. We went to sleep. Somebody was up 50 votes. 50 votes. By like 2 o'clock, because on election day you run for election, you're going to be up all night, at least 1 or 2. So by 2 o'clock, he was up 20 votes. And everybody, surely, he's going to win. We woke up in the morning, he ended up losing. Overnight, 20 votes. There's 20 people in here right now. Elections matter. Vote. Your vote, a lot of people tell me, well, my vote, does my vote matter? Yeah, it really does. 20 votes. And now he is the constable in precinct 2, you know. And so that, like he said, that affects your everyday life. So just that's something to keep with you. Your vote is powerful.
that Danny and I talked about all the time, and I was telling him, I said, these people at this church know when it's voting season, yeah, I'm saying, are you voting? Have you studied your candidates? Do you know what's on the ballot? Do you know? That's one thing that I even talk to my parents about all the time, about recognizing what is going on in our community and actually getting out there and getting involved. So I would admonish each and every one of these saints members and friends to get out there and vote, cast your vote, make your voice count. Okay, I'm going to shift the topic of discussion just a little bit because alluded to earlier, Tyra, is surrounding mental health. And I know that that is something that is really big in our African American community. And a lot of times it is, and I'm glad that you made mention that we're shifting the stigma where we're actually seeking help. Because I think a lot of it had to do with the shift with COVID starting. So many people were dealing with anxiety. So many people were dealing with depression and all of these other such things. And so many people were dealing with depression and all these other such things. So what they started doing was, you know, a lot of people were dealing with anxiety, all-time high. Like folks never been diagnosed with it. So it's a relief to hear that as a culture, we're actually taking time and taking the opportunity to do that. So my question is, if you would please first kind of talk about the difference on what is considered to be a licensed professional mental health therapist, an LPC, or a therapist, or a counselor, or a PhD. Can you kind of elude or share some insight on what the difference between those are?
Okay. Got it? Okay. So a licensed professional counselor, which is what I am, LPC, that's very broad when it comes to mental health. Excuse me. Okay. So LPC is licensed professional counselor, and that LPC is very broad. So you're pretty much just dealing with the logistics of mental health. You can break it down from depression, anxiety, PTSD, grief, trauma. There's different modalities of using the therapies and the theories that we use. As far as a PhD, you can be a social worker and go get licensed to be a counselor. That's an LCSW. Same thing, all right? PhD, you may want to go get your PhD, which I'm thinking about it, so pray for me. Whether it's in psychology or whether it's in counseling or whether it's in education. I cannot prescribe medication. I am not against medication. I do know that within our culture, we're quick to not want to label, especially our children, as well as ourselves. So when a client comes in and say, my child has ADHD or ADD, but I don't want them to be labeled and I don't want them to be on meds, there's nothing wrong with medication. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's also nothing wrong with medication and talk therapy. So as an LPC, that's what I do. I do talk therapy. But I tell my clients anytime that they call me for a consultation, I let them know I'm bold, I'm blunt, and I'm very, very honest. I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm not going to curse you out. That's not who I am, but I'm going to meet you where you are. And growing up, I've never went to therapy a day in my life until I got to grad school, and my first professor said, so who in this class have ever seen a therapist? And I'm doing the matrix because I was like, who in here? And his response was, you want someone to come and sit and talk to you, but you've never went to sit and talk to somebody? You have to do better. And while I was with CPS, I had a child death, not mine, because the case was moved on. And although that was no longer my case when this baby died, it affected me in more ways than one. One, they fought me for it when I no longer had the case. Two, I knew this baby when she was 2. And so when I went to therapy to address that thing at CPS,
We started talking about my childhood. Now, why are we talking about my childhood when I came here for this? But I understand it now. The things that we go through in life, because we suppress a lot of it, we don't think it bothers us when we become an adult. And so when we talked about those things, I was like, I did not come in here to talk about my childhood. I'm coming in here to talk about this, whatever. But it made sense because I'm family oriented, and I do get attached. She can tell you, I get attached because if I love you, I'm gonna love hard, but I'm gonna call you on your faults. And I'm a Christian. I'm at church. I believe in the Word. But growing up, it was pray about it. You're gonna be all right. Going on about your business. And now we don't know how to process things as adults. Now I don't know how to have conversations. Now I don't feel safe with you. I don't feel vulnerable with you. So I can't come and tell you, hey, Daniel, I've gone through some things right now and I just need somebody to listen. Oh, you're going to be all right because I got things to do. And so now we don't feel like we can talk to anybody. So when COVID hit, mind you, I opened my practice in the middle of COVID. I stepped out on faith because people was like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in education. I have a whole almost salary, right? And I'm like, why would I leave this? But I had to pray about it. And I asked God, show me what it is that I'm supposed to do here. And I literally opened my practice in the middle of COVID, and every client that I received loved it because, for one, it was teletherapy, and by the time we were able to open, it was like, I'm tired of this computer. I'm tired of being behind this screen. I need to see somebody face to face because this is what I'm dealing with. And if it's teens in here who was in school during COVID, parents didn't understand. What you depressed about? What you sad about? You're at home, you're doing schoolwork. I'm like, but these kids, this is something different. It was something new to us. So these kids was going through a lot. So I'm happy to see us getting the help that we need, being vulnerable, feeling safe, because it's needed. It's needed.
I asked Apostle to kind of step up for a second. I want him to also address the mental health from a spiritual perspective. So I'm glad that you alluded to that because it's something that, like you said, in the African American community, pray about it, you're going to be all right. Go ahead, Apostle.
I always tell people,
I'm sorry.
as it relates to mental health, one of the core scriptures that we always use is Romans 12 and 2, talking about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so people don't think about how in your face that scripture is. Transformation can only come spiritually when you deal with your mental issues. And a lot of times people think that that's another something, but it's right there. It's exactly what it says. Go and talk to a counselor, talk to a pastor, talk to your parent, talk to somebody that is on another level from where you are, not just people that are dealing with the same thing. The Bible also says evil communication corrupts good manners. And a lot of times we try to find safety within our peer community, which is not always the best thing because most of the time people in that same community are dealing with the same issues. And we just teach each other how to just mask it and get around it, suppress it, repress it. But it's important to actually deal with that stuff from a mental perspective so that you can move on in life. The Bible says forgetting those things which are behind you. And he talks about pressing toward the mark for a prize of a higher calling. But you cannot press toward the future if you still are dealing with a bunch of lingering things that have happened to you. And I always use this, your memory, when you think about memory, remembering or constantly going over in your mind the things that have happened without there being someone to help you through that, all you're doing is putting back together, remembering what was once dismembered. And so it's important to deal with that with somebody that's a professional.
My next question is, can you kind of give some pointers on how to find the best counselor or therapist or anything like that? Because sometimes we need that assistance as well.
What I would tell anyone, there's a tool called Psychology Today. And it gives you an opportunity to filter out exactly what you're looking for. I do a 15-minute consultation with every one of my clients because we're human as well. And if it's too heavy, I'll tell you, I'm not the one for you. Not because I can't do it, but it may be that particular season in my life where I'm not going to project and feel as if I can assist you when I'm not fully whole myself. We're human. We have triggers. We have a whole background. We have a past and things of this nature. I don't do mandate services. If you call me and say the court told me I need to have anger management, I'm not doing it. I'm not the person for you. I will redirect you and refer you to somebody. But when you're looking for a therapist, know exactly what it is that you want to achieve in therapy. A lot of times we may not know what that is, but a therapist can walk you through it. But be able to know exactly, hey, I want an African-American woman. I want someone who's married. I want someone who has children. I want someone who's in church. You can be very, very specific. And I promise you, believe me, if we're working together and you tell me, Tyra, we're not a good fit, I'm glad that you recognize that. I'm glad that you're aware. Now, do you want me to help you find somebody else? Because if we don't know what it is that we want, how do we know we're going to get it? You know, so you can come, I need coping skills for anxiety. Okay, so tell me what's going on for you to think that you have anxiety. Oh, well, I was just twiddling my thumbs and that's not anxiety. Because what happens is we allow the world to give us labels in our heads, and that's not what it is. You're nervous. Your mom just passed away a year ago, and you haven't been able to process what those feelings are because you've never had to deal with death like this. So no, it's not anxiety, it's grief. So when you have someone to be able to break it down such as that, because they're not thinking that way. They're just thinking, oh, well, the world, I just went on WebMD and Googled anxiety, and I have all these symptoms. But let's get to the core of why you have these things, right? So when you are looking for a therapist, sit down and ask yourself, what are my achievable goals that I want to achieve in therapy when I go? And sometimes you may get that therapist that's like me that's going to call you out on some stuff. You sit in my office and, so, how are you doing today? And you're like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine. But your whole face look like I really don't want to be here. I'm calling you on it because if I don't call you on it, I'm not doing you any justice at all. And it's okay. I make this place a safe space. So you have to be able to know what it is that you're needing out of therapy, what it is that you're wanting out of therapy, and by the time that therapist decides to say, hey, you know what, our work here is done because I feel that you've gained X, Y, and Z, you have to know what that is. That therapist shouldn't tell you, okay, you're healed and gone. You have to be able to show, I've used these coping skills.